Welcome to episode 63 on the Live Blissed Out podcast. Did you know that although female businesses make up about 40% of small business in the U.S., approximately 90% of female business owners are making less than $100,000 in revenue, and globally, only 4% of million-dollar businesses are female-owned? Hello, action takers. Welcome to Live Blissed Out, a podcast where I have inspirational and informational conversations with business owners and subject matter experts to help us get the scoop and the lowdown on a variety of topics. Tired of hesitating or making decisions without having the big picture? Want to be in the know? Then this is the place to go. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, helping achieve bliss through awareness and action. Thanks for joining me. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Joining me is Jessica Sato, business consultant, TedX Speaking Coach, and Transition Advisor at Two Smart Girls. Jessica trained and coached thousands of clients individually and in groups over the last 13 years to improve their businesses, their careers, and ultimately their lives. She has designed and delivered single-day and multi-day week workshops across the U.S. and internationally to help individuals build a career or business they love. She also co-designed the Mini Mental Makeover and is co-founder of the Smart Girl Collaborative. Through coaching, masterminds, masterclasses, and sales training, she has helped female corporate professionals leap from their 9-to-5 and build wildly successful businesses. To learn more, visit twosmartgirls.com. Are you ready to upgrade your culinary toolkit with more menu variety and professional techniques? My Encore Kitchen brings their professional culinary experience into your kitchen and gives you the guidance you need to create meals for you and your family with ease. Their chefs will share their favorite recipes, and you will get access to their skills library to become more creative in the kitchen, forever changing how you prep and serve your meals. You can choose from the recipes of the month anytime you want to make something new in your kitchen. At My Encore Kitchen, you can follow along with the virtual cooking classes during their culinary team's video demonstrations from the comfort of your own stove. Refine your skills with technique-focused clips in their skill library or create a hearty meal complete with an appetizer. Save time trying to find your new favorite recipes online. Instead, dive into their curated series of 4 meals each month and enjoy learning the chef-selected recipes with easy and engaging instructions. Cook together in the kitchen and create something that will wow your loved ones and become a memorable experience everyone will look forward to. To learn more, visit myencorekitchen.com or call 720-907-3838. Jessica, I am so looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I have been waiting to have this conversation with you.
Me too. And this is a topic that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with. We're talking about women making the leap, particularly when they're starting after 40. That has its own set of challenges that women have to deal with. Why does it seem that women these days are now reinventing themselves later in life?
It's such a good question. I like to say 40 is the new black when it comes to starting a business because interestingly enough, the data actually bears that out. I was digging in, looking at the numbers. That's one of the things I love to do. And as it turns out, about 45 is the average age that women are successfully starting up new businesses. And I think that's because of a couple of things. One, for many women, we followed the path. We followed the plan. Go to college, graduate, land a good job, climb the corporate ladder, start a family if that was part of your plan. And you get to a certain juncture and you realize, wow, this is not what I thought it would be. Or maybe there are other pressing demands on your time. We talk a lot about women being in the sandwich generation. They've got kids that they're caring for, parents that they're caring for, and it just becomes too much. And I found pretty consistently that women are taking that track. They followed the plan and they've hit this wall where they realize it's not all it's cracked up to be. They want to do something different. Maybe their heart has been longing to do something, a passion project, or maybe they just realize they've bumped up against a ceiling inside their corporate job that's not going to allow them the freedom or the flexibility or even the fulfillment to do the things that they really, really want to do. And so they take that experience and expertise that they have under their belt, right, years of it, and apply it to a new thing. Women are leaving the corporate space in droves, trying to build businesses. It really comes down to what I have bucketed as wanting more freedom, needing more flexibility, and really desiring a deeper level of fulfillment. And they get to decide on their terms what it is that they actually want to do.
You know, this makes total sense. And particularly when you get to a certain age, you do realize life is short. It never really hits home until you get to that point. And so you're going, I don't feel different. I'm still me. I still have the same things that I get excited about. And maybe I'm a different person because I'm wiser and I've learned new things. You wake up and you're like, I'm really 45 or I'm really 50. How can this be? Where did the time go? And then I think the fear hits because then you're realizing, wait a minute, I'm now on the back end of my life. Is this it for me? And then the other piece of it too is that then if you've invested all this time and energy into something that you've done for your family and particularly for your security, for example, now is a time to say, what about me? How can I be a little selfish for myself? But at the same time, those are fears we deal with. Let's face it, when you're starting a new business, there's no guarantees. There's so many what ifs that happen in the process. So this fear hits and it stops us from moving ahead because fear is paralysis in a way, right? It's like your system telling you, stop, there's a wall, don't go past it. How do we address those fears? The reality is there's going to be people out there that are going to be uber successful and probably say, why didn't I do this sooner? And then there are going to be some people that go, wow, I thought this was going to be a little easier than it really is. Do I want to spend time starting over from scratch and putting so much energy into this? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Of all the fears that I hear from women, it really comes down to, I'm just going to bucket into three categories. But the first one, and this is really what you're speaking to, is, if you've spent a good amount of your career building it in corporate, climbing the ladder, the idea of leaving all of that behind. And in your mind, it does feel like, oh, I'm leaving this behind. I'm starting from scratch. But the reality is we're actually not. There's no guarantee for success, like you said. But people who have years of experience under their belt, typically, as they're attempting new business ventures, taking risks, et cetera, having lessons learned, wins and losses, they can't help but eventually be successful. And I think when you look at people who have longevity in the corporate space and they are thinking about making the leap, or maybe they've made the leap and they're kind of like, holy moly, what did I just do? All of that stems back from, okay, did I just give up something and start with a blank sheet of paper? And I like to think of it almost like mountain climbers. You and I are both here in Colorado, and we as a family are big rock climbers. And I've thought a lot about this journey into entrepreneurship as if you were a mountain climber. So when you're in corporate or when you're starting your career, you climb a mountain. And at some point you reach whatever your pinnacle happens to be. Maybe it's the summit. Maybe you hit the peak of what you thought and you think to yourself, okay, I've climbed that mountain. I want a new challenge. And I see that a lot. Women in particular are looking for new ways to challenge themselves in a way that is on their terms. So then they decide, oh, I'm going to climb a new mountain. And that's where entrepreneurship comes in. So while they're nervous about starting from scratch, the way I think about it is, but you have all the tools, you have the know-how, you've already climbed a mountain. It's not like you've never done it before. It just looks a little bit different. And in fact, one of the exercises that we have our clients work through is what we refer to as the treasure hunt, which is really digging deep into their professional, volunteer, even parenthood, to capture all these experiences, the lessons learned, the expertise, all of that, and bring that to the table when they start building their business. I think that's really where people are struggling. The corporate space is the devil that we know. There's this fear that the grass isn't going to be greener. And so to me, it's a recognition that you're not starting from scratch, that you have a whole arsenal of tools and experiences that are going to help you climb this new mountain. And it's not like a blank sheet of paper. You're just staring at an empty map and you have no idea what to do or how to read it. You have the skills in order to make that climb happen for yourself.
it's a shift. So for example, when you were talking about the mountain, I was thinking about the difference between skiing and snowboarding. You're still up in the mountain and doing something with your feet and the ice, but the tools are different and the method is different. A corporate life is very, very different from an entrepreneurial life, for sure. So to set yourself up and say, well, just because I've been very successful in the corporate world and now I want to start something new for myself, having the expectation that it will be similar to that is not realistic either. It's applying everything that was great and that you learned from your experience in the past and then kind of reinventing yourself some way in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like your analogy with the skiing and the snowboarding, because as a skier, the idea of getting on a snowboard is intimidating. Like, I already know how to ski. I know how to not fall down. And all I see is snowboarders falling down. But, that is part of the process. As an entrepreneur, you step into something, you have some tools, you have some know-how, and you can expect to be delicately put on your butt in the snow, trying to get the hang of it. And slowly but surely, the more times you get up, the more you learn and the more progress you make. So it's not going to be this linear kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I guarantee that if you stick with it, if you keep showing up, you will eventually be successful. There's just no way around it.
Especially if you work with people like you who can help us overcome some of the obvious things that we wouldn't know if we didn't have a professional by our side. That just makes it so much easier. Let's talk about timing, because I think that's very critical. And I know that there's this sense of, I've put so much time and energy most of my life doing X. And now I'm deciding that I want to start over. How do I even know it's the right time for me to make this shift? The message I hear people say a lot is that I was so close. I almost hit the top of the mountain and I quit before I got there. We don't want to be in that space. And I think that's another fear we're dealing with. So how do we then identify when it's the right time?
So this is a little bit tricky because it's also very individual. But what I have consistently seen in women who make the leap, and I put myself and my business partner in this bucket, when the pain of what you're in is too much, that's when I see most people leave. And what I mean by that is, and I hate to say this, but it's true, it's easier to be complacent and to be okay with everything is fine, as opposed to really stepping out into discomfort. Because let's be honest, it takes courage. Courage doesn't feel good in the moment, and it's hard. Our brain is wired to keep us from doing that. There are factors that are keeping us in our comfort zone. I found that, at least in my case, when I got to a place where I just could not imagine another day in this space, and it had nothing to do with this space. For some people it is, right? Maybe they're in toxic environments. I'm not quite talking about that, but it could apply. For me, when I got to this point where I just couldn't imagine another day where I didn't have control over what work I was going to do or how I was going to show up or what my work life would look like, it became too untenable. At the time, I had 2 young kids. We were in a place where we had zero bandwidth for any kind of deviation from the schedule. And I just kept thinking to myself, there has to be a better way. I tried to picture my life living in this tension all the time until my kids had graduated from high school, and I just could not imagine it. For me, the question of when do you make the leap is a deeply personal one. But I can tell you for sure that women that we work with will always say, I wish I would have done it sooner. So there is a bit of courage and risk taking needed in order to do it. But I think that's where people like me and my partner come in, because we help you build a plan. When people say, oh, make the leap, there's this idea of like, I'm just jumping off the high dive into a big pit of water and I don't know what's going to happen at the bottom. Are there sharks in there? Is it safe? But we want to help women actually build that plan. Some of the women are literally at the place where they can't imagine another day. And we want to rapidly move them through building a plan, making sure they've got their finances in order so that when they make the leap, they're prepared. Others have a lot longer in their process of getting themselves to this place. Maybe they have a dream, an idea, and they've been noodling on it, but they're not quite sure. We help them get that idea formulated so that when they are ready, they're fully prepared to do that. I always go back to making a plan, making sure that you've got your ducks in a row, so that you can make that transition well is really, really important to making the leap in a way that feels good. Because I don't want you to get to the other side and start to have that panic. I mean, more than you might already, that comes naturally with it. I want women to know that even though it will be hard, I have worked harder in my entrepreneurial endeavors than I ever worked in the corporate space. They are doing that in a way that serves them, that's on their terms. So ask yourself, what is your tolerance for taking the risk? Do you have your finances in order? And by that, I mean, take a really good hard look at what it costs for you to live, how much of your income from that corporate salary is needed, what can you set aside, how long will that take you, and build out a plan for what you think those business expenses will be in the first year to 2 years, and set yourself up for success. And it makes the leap much easier.
Based on what you were saying, one of the questions I ask when I'm ready to do something different is, can I live with the decision of not doing it? Because if that is scarier, then I know that I'm likely ready to start really taking action. But the other thing I realized for me was that there's a huge mindset difference between running away and going towards something. And I find that if I'm looking at it from the perspective of I'm walking towards something new, this is something good, I'm moving ahead, as opposed to I'm running away from something that I'm just so unhappy with and I'm miserable and I'm looking at things with doom and gloom, like I'm just doing this because I'm at the end of the rope type of thing. It may be the same thing, but the mindset and the way you look at it really makes a difference in terms of how you feel about approaching it.
Absolutely. In fact, I want to tack on to those 2 points. One, your question is, what will it be like if I don't do this? And we talk about that as, what is the cost of inaction? We always talk about return on investment and all of that, but what is the COI? What is the cost of inaction? Because there is always a cost. And really being honest with yourself. And if you're in a partnership, being honest with your partner about where you are in that and what the cost is to you as an individual and to you in your partnership or in your relationship. And then the second thing, I really love that you brought this up about what are you running from? And I'll just use an example here. I got to the point in my corporate career about a year before I actually left where I hit that brick wall. And I thought, I really want to get out of here. This is not working for me. It was not a good mindset. If I had left in that moment, I would have been running away from. And I remember my husband saying to me, is this really how you want to leave this career, this chapter of your life behind? And in the moment, I was like, yes, this is exactly how I want to leave it. But the truth is, I didn't want to leave it. I wanted to leave it on my terms. And so I used that year to build a plan. I used it to make sure our finances were in order. We paid off a lot of debt. I closed out all of the relationships, all the projects that I had been working on in a way that I felt really good about and that was on par with my professional standard and my expectations for myself. And so that when I walked out of the office, I left knowing that I was walking toward something that I was passionate about, something that I wanted to do, as opposed to running away from. And this is especially important because if you leave and you're running from something, it will literally follow you into this next venture. So it's worth your time to dig in, figure out what's at play, and then do the hard work to get yourself into a position where you actually are leaving and walking towards something as opposed to leaving on bad terms or running away from something. So I really appreciate you bringing up that point.
I'm glad you elaborated on it, because what comes to mind too is the fact that we are logical creatures, but we're also very emotional creatures. And so that is the clash that we deal with, because there's the emotional side that oftentimes will run away and say, well, I'm just unhappy. And then you start looking at all the negative things as opposed to remembering all the wonderful things that you learned during the time that you were there, because you're just emotional. You want to make a change and that just takes over. What you're saying is, let's not do that. And let's not focus on just that part, but plan. Really look at the logical steps that it's going to take to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. It's like looking down at a pit and not knowing what's in there. That's scary. But if you have a plan, then you know exactly where you're going. Now, is it 100% predictable? Of course not, because business in itself, it moves and changes and you have to make a lot of adjustments along the way, but at least you have a guide. So your GPS might take you in the general vicinity of where you want to go, There's many routes to take. So you could go to X and there's many ways you can get there. Just having that guide really helps you overcome that stress and fear, because without it, you're going blind. And that is really scary.
100%.
Are there any tips that you want to share with our listeners? Maybe even one or two things that they can do right now that can help them overcome any of these potential challenges that they are going to face. Let's make no mistake, there are going to be challenges. When you're doing something new, it's not going to be all rosy.
Well, I think just acknowledging that it's not going to be rosy is going to be a really important factor in success. And I look at some of the fears that I hear people saying. And to me, when you are thinking about making a change, I think there has to be a recognition that you're going to be confronted or put in a position where there's now a different level of exposure. So for example, when you're in corporate, people are watching, you're tracking along the path, right? But there's some rhythm to that. And what I find for a lot of entrepreneurs is this feeling of almost like chaos because they don't have a rhythm. They don't know exactly how they're going to show up or what they need to do or how to get in that. So to me, it really comes down to being strategic and clear about what is it that you really want. In fact, we have been running a series over in our Smart Girl community about why isn't your business making money? And one of the very big reasons is that people don't have specific enough financial goals. And I extend that to people don't have clear goals, period. We never articulate, we have an idea, but we never put it on paper. We never communicate that with anyone. And so it's almost like this nebulous thing. So, when you're talking about GPS, I think to myself, yep, you're right. GPS will point you in the right direction. Sometimes it will take you to a point or a location, but is that the actual end game? Recognize that it's going to feel a little bit chaotic. Recognize that you're going to be putting yourself out there in a way that is going to feel very exposed. You will feel vulnerable. People will be watching, and that you need a plan with clearly articulated goals. Now, do they have to be perfect? No. But, I think of it as the North Star. If I don't know where I'm going, I could be all over the place. So those are the big things I would say are really, really important when you're at this transition point. This is where you do the hard work and set yourself up for success right from the beginning.
Jessica, you and I can relate a lot to this conversation because we both came from a corporate world. Given that, what would you do differently if you were to tell somebody what your experience was? Let's say you had to do it all over again. What's the one thing you would change if you could?
In my case, I had a plan, but I will just say I definitely think that a lot of women don't have a plan when they leave. So that would be one thing. Make sure you have a plan with clearly articulated goals and expectations, and that you've had conversations about how those roles in your family, in your circle of influence, how those will change. Beyond that, what I wish I had done is asked for help earlier. I wish I had sought out what I'll just say is wise counsel from people who were further ahead in the journey from me. And I say that because my partner and I made a lot of mistakes when we started Two Smart Girls, that had we really sought out counsel that challenged our perspective and forced us to really dig in and think critically about the decision, we probably would have saved ourselves a lot of heartache and money. We have grown up in a DIY culture. You get this badge of honor for going it alone. And I find that a lot of women step into entrepreneurship. They're now feeling very isolated because the people that they have been surrounded with, who've been part of their extended work family, are not really there in that capacity. And so now they're making decisions in complete isolation, and they have no perspective on what the impact of that will be. And if you've never been an entrepreneur, there is such a steep learning curve. There's a lot of things that can help you streamline that process. So I wish I had had someone who could guide me through that process and help shorten the amount of time, energy, effort, money that I spent, and so that I didn't suffer some of the same heartache and frustration and disappointment at the beginning of the journey, because I would have been much better off had I just asked.
I'm so glad you said that, because a very wise coach that I follow and has helped me a lot said something to me that always sticks with me. And he said that there is nothing that he can teach me that isn't already out there that I can get access to. I can go to so many different sources to get the information. But the reason why you hire somebody to help you is because that person already packaged everything, already knows what works and what doesn't work, is able to customize things for you and be there for you whenever you need them. And that is really what you're getting. You're getting the convenience, not only obviously the information, but there's much more to it because you'll have a lot of questions. You're going to have specific scenarios that don't apply generically. And so having that person next to you and knowing, as you said, that you're not alone and that you're going to get that assistance or that support that you need, that's what you're getting. It's not about comparing it to, oh, well, I can go to YouTube and listen to this channel and they're going to tell me how to do X, Y, Z. It's a lot deeper than that. It's a different environment and you feel like you're putting a million hats on. In the corporate world, you've got your IT department, you got your scheduling department, you got your training department. And when you need something, you reach out to each one of those and problem solved. It's very different when you are running your own business and having to build things from scratch. So having that expert to have access to and who's already been through it and can kind of walk you through it and also identify with your specific challenges, it makes all the difference in the world. So I'm so glad you said that. If you could share with our listeners exactly what you do, who you help in particular, and how they can get more information about you.
Our website is 2smartgirls.com. That's the number 2, smartgirls.com. And we are on Facebook under TWO, Smart Girls. We have a Smart Girl community there as well that's open to women to join. I'm on LinkedIn as well under Jess-Sato. So those are probably the best ways to reach us. We work with women who are ready to build a business. So you could be in corporate America right now, and you are saying to yourself, okay, I am ready. I know that I was made for more. I want more freedom. I want more flexibility. I want to do things on my terms. I just need help getting through the process. Those are the women we work with. We also work with women who have made the leap and now they're saying to themselves, okay, I've tried this. It's not working. I don't know what's going wrong. I need someone to guide me through the process of business building. So we're kind of working with the same woman, but at 2 different junctures. She's either just ready to make the leap and hasn't yet, or she's made the leap and she's like, oh boy, what did I get myself into? And we really want to bring her on a journey. And we do that through our Boss Blueprint. And it's basically thinking about your business almost like you would as if you were building a house, right? You need to have the right foundation, putting the right pieces in place to build your business in a way that is structurally sound, really getting clear on the structure. What is the business model? What is the next best alternative? Who do you want to serve? What problem do you solve for the people that you actually want to work with? Digging into systems and making sure that when you build your business, you've got the pieces in place that allow your business to grow with ease. A lot of times what happens is people will build their business and they don't have any eye toward growth. They're just like, let me just get this thing built. And so we really help you think more strategically about putting the right systems in place. What is your marketing system? What is your sales system? How do you actually deliver on what you promise? And what are those back office operations that we all need, the administrative, the financial? And then we really help you get clear on what is your offer? What is the thing that makes your offer different and sets you apart? Because there are many, many people doing basically the same thing, offering at the core the same service, but the way in which we do that, the unique transformation that we experience or that we want to bring people through, the client experience, all of that is what makes your business uniquely yours and sets you apart. So we really want to help you get clear on what that looks like. And then we take you to the last piece, which is the curb appeal. This is the marketing, the visibility, the impression that people have of your business, that high level brand perception, that when people think about you and when they think about your business, what comes to mind? And that again stems back to who you are as a person, what you're trying to create for your business and for your clients. So we really take you through a process that allows you to work step by step in a very systematic way and build your business in a structured manner so that you're not jumping ahead to marketing when you don't even know who you're targeting, right? And I see that a lot. So our hope is to really help women who are high achievers, who are driven, who are results oriented, who have had a lot of success in their career, but they're just looking for something different, a way to channel their heart, their passions, their skills in a different way that's uniquely theirs. And we want to help them bring that to life.
And that uniqueness is so undervalued sometimes. People just don't realize. Going back to what you said, a lot of people can paint beautiful paintings, right? But Van Gogh and Picasso never competed. Why? Because they had their own style. They were individually unique. They were both doing the same thing, but in completely different ways. You go to these networking groups, you meet people, and they're all offering the same thing, the same product, the same end game. What makes us make the decision to call on an individual? There's a lot of factors for that. And so that's so critical, because if we are not clear on that, how can we expect our potential customers to be clear on that, right?
Yeah, your wow factor, right, is critical. And we all have a story that is deeply compelling. And I think this is where sometimes people struggle to see that their story is in fact unique. It's very easy to kind of get in your head about, oh, everybody knows this. I don't have anything to offer. There's nothing unique or special about me. But the truth is, every one of us has a unique way of showing up, a unique way of explaining or helping someone, a story that literally changed the trajectory of our life. And it deserves to be heard and put out into the world. And so I just really encourage women, especially women, to take a step back and really think about what makes you unique. And I'm just going to throw out a little challenge to the listeners here. I challenge you to go onto social media. You can blame it on a coach. Say, my coach asked me to do this exercise. Give me 3 words that come to mind when you think of me, or 3 things that make me unique. And I guarantee you will be blown away at what people think about you that is very different than what you think about yourself. And it's just a nice perspective shift. I had a client who's in Italy, and we had her do this, and she was like, I can't really think of what makes me unique. So we gave her this challenge, and it came back that it was like creative, genuine, authentic, enterprising. So she had all these characteristics that people saw in her that she couldn't see in herself. And so that's the beauty of a coach and a community that can help you see what you can't see for yourself.
Jessica, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you about this topic, because I think there are a lot of people that are feeling the things that we were describing. And we want to encourage people to say, you can reinvent yourself at any point. There's just a lot of factors you have to think about in terms of, is this right for you? Because everything is individual. And we don't tell people what to do. We want to create that awareness and help them understand what the pros and cons are and what are some things you should be thinking about, so that then they can at least begin to plan to try to get to where they want to go. So, Jessica, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Jessica Sato for being my guest. If you have a question or comment for a future episode, all you have to do is go to speakpipe.com/LBOVM or click the link in the show notes to leave a brief audio message. If you find value in our show, please visit liveblessedout.com to reach out, subscribe, and share on social media. This show is made possible through listeners like you. Thank you. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.